and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 183. Today we are talking about how we deal with unexpected property development events. And trust me, they happen. And we've got one going on right now, so we thought, well, let's unpack this because you could find it useful now or even in the future. Here we go. Let's jump on into episode 183. Welcome to episode 183, Hilary and Bob Anderson, the Property Mastermind Podcast, all that stuff. Today we're talking about how we deal with unexpected things that pop up when you're doing property development, because as I said in the intro, we're dealing with one ourselves right now. Before we get started though, the book, Property Millionaires Exposed. This book, this week, which is January 9th or about then, is going to Caleb Sangster. Caleb's just joined our mentoring program. He's going to be right now knee deep in learning, and we can't wait to see you grow, Caleb. So this is on its way to you. Anyway, back to our podcast. Bob, what's your tip?
Well, I picked up a tip yesterday, actually, listening to your, what was it? What would you call that?
My mindset session, like mastering your mindset.
Mastering your mindset session, yeah. And it was what you call the most important part, and that was reflection. I hadn't thought much about that. And I thought, yeah. Do you want to give a quick, 20 seconds of what that means?
Yeah, well, we learn so much when we reflect on what we've done. Yeah. But the key is the past is a place to reflect, not reside.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know if I said that during there, But when we start living in our past and always harping on about it and going over what's wrong with us and being, whose fault it is and all that rubbish that people tend to get caught up in, when that happens, you don't move forward. So reflection, it's a great opportunity for you to look and think, yes, I did that well, I'll do it again. Or actually, no, that's not how I want that to be, or I need to change that. You can reflect after a phone call, you can reflect at the end of the day, you can reflect every week, you can reflect monthly, and you're listening to this at early 2025. You could reflect now on last year and decide, well, how am I going to do 2025 better than I did 2024 if it needs tweaking? Or you might just think, man, I smashed 24, it was so good, I'm going to repeat it. So reflection,
you don't want to get lost there and go back and stay there.
No, it is. What about that saying though, Bob? Isn't it gold? That your past is a place to reflect on, but not to reside at. And I think that's a bit of a takeaway there.
Don't want to reside there.
Don't want to reside there. That's it. Our podcast is done. 3 minutes 27 in.
Oh wow!
Not even that.
Off we go.
No. Okay, so. As I said, we're recording this before the year comes to an end. So for us, it's actually December the 18th. Or it might not get done in time, but hopefully, fingers crossed, the editors, I think she's finishing today. Ooh. But anyways, we are recording this today because we're dealing with a current issue and it's an unexpected thing. So we thought we'd unpack it and look at how this is affecting us right now, what we're doing, and then how you could apply it maybe now or maybe in the future. So Bob, do you want to unpack the whole story?
Yeah. Well, part of the issue is Christmas.
It's always, how many times have we had Christmas issues? Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, Christmas.
I think every year.
As we record this, Christmas is a week away, right? And we know what happens at Christmas. People shut down. In fact, a lot of them shut down before Christmas. And I'm talking about people in our industry. I'm talking about lawyers particularly. Valuers, quantity surveyors, different consultants, architects and everybody else.
All the councils are at lunch.
Well, they start their lunch on the 1st of December, I think. But, just trying to get anything done. And a lot of them have shut their books for a while.
Yeah.
Everywhere, not just in property development. A lot of people shut their books a while ago. And so the particular situation we have at the moment is it's regarding an industrial development that we're doing. Now, with this particular development, we're buying a block of industrial land in an industrial subdivision.
You got a whistle there, Bob.
I have.
A whistle.
Don't know where that came from. I've been practicing my whistling.
Oh, well, there you go. It's paying off.
Yeah, working. I wasn't planning it then, but so we're buying a block of industrial land. Now, we've got an industrial developer who's doing a land subdivision, and he's cutting it up into about 27 lots, different sizes. We're buying one of those. But because it was going to be in really high demand, we had to buy early. We had to go to contract really early. And we're talking about 9 months ago.
And just everything we're saying now about what we're doing applies to any development.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, you can't think, well, you don't need to think, oh, it's just about industrial, it's about big things. You can apply this to absolutely any development that you're doing. So this, what we're talking about, moves through them all.
Yeah, look, it could be a duplex site that suddenly just popped up on the market. It doesn't really matter. I'm just explaining ours because it's got a little bit of relevance. So we had to act fast because this opportunity came up. Land was in very short supply, particularly in this area, and we wanted to do it, and we jumped on it. So I suppose there's something there to learn. If a good deal comes up, don't muck around, jump on it. And if we didn't, somebody else would have the next day on that particular project. So we did. It's an off-plan purchase, and we signed a contract before they even started to build the land. Now, before they even moved, excavator,
A teaspoon of dirt.
a teaspoon of dirt, we signed up, and we did it on an option initially, and that then converted into a contract. So the situation was, we're not 100% sure when the other developer is going to get titles to his subdivision, because we can't settle, of course, unless he has titles.
But there was a process put in place for when he did, then that would happen, but it was all determined by him.
Yeah, and look, it was okay. So the settlement, for us to settle that land, is so many days after the title's issued. The thing is, nobody really knows when the titles are going to issue that far away.
Did we have a rough idea when we thought it might be?
Well, yeah, we did, but it moved out because we had a lot of wet weather, and they couldn't even get on site to do this for a while. And then they fell behind, and then there was another lot of rain. There's a lot of wet weather during the construction. And the other developer ended up bringing 2 teams on, 2 civil contracting teams to speed it up. And I've done that with other developments too, like townhouse developments, where the builder, if you're like pushing them or he's falling behind, he might bring in 2 or 3 carpenter gangs, to finish something, or a bigger tiler with a lot more, tilers. So, you meet these things, and builders can speed up. So this guy, he sped up. So guess what happened? We were told that the titles were going to issue in January 25. So that gave us plenty of time. In fact, we got to a point where we could lodge our development permit even before we settled. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, we got notification from the developer that titles did just issue about 8 weeks early.
And so that was like December.
That was November.
Must have been late November.
No. And so what that meant is, we got caught with our pants down, because
you never want to get caught with your pants down, Bob.
No, you don't. And so we were just starting to arrange our finance when all of a sudden we found out titles have issued. And then we're looking at a calendar and thinking, wow, we've got to speed up this process somehow. But looming Christmas.
And when you think finance, when you're working with investors, we've got to get valuations, we've got Financier, we've got Christmas, we've got people on holiday, we've got people shutting down, we've got everyone super busy, because you can guarantee you're not the only person going for a settlement, which I know because I'm talking to the Financier every day. Yeah, so it just gets nuts, hey? It
does get nuts. And so we quickly had to jump onto it. So one of the big issues, of course, is getting a valuation, because you're not going to get you get an indicative approval from a financier where they say, yeah, look, we'll lend you the money based on meeting these conditions. And one of them, and a very important one, is getting a valuation. And so it's all right getting the nod, yeah, we'll lend you the money when all this happens, but, what about the timing? And so because our contract said we had to settle so many days after the issuing of titles, and titles came out really early, we're caught on a date we can't meet. And for a couple of reasons. One is getting the valuation. Now, it's a bigger than average project, so the valuation's a little bit complex. It's going to take a bit longer to get. It's sort of like getting a valuation maybe on a duplex or, building a house or something. And so we've got that issue. And we spoke to a couple of valuers. We know who the financier is we want to use. And so they have a panel of valuers, about 3, and we could choose from those 3. So we chose the one who could do it the fastest, but it's still not fast enough. And so we're not going to get the valuation until the 10th of January. So it's possibly just after you're watching this.
So it's almost like it's impossible to actually settle.
Yeah, and so our settlement date, based on the contract, is the 6th of January.
Can't happen.
We're supposed to settle on the 6th, where that's possibly the day most people come back to work. We're supposed to settle that day, which means we'd have to have a valuation last week, finished. So this is the process. And look, it doesn't really matter. This is typically how it happens. You apply for finance with the financier, and they ask you for certain documentation, and they get to a point where if they're happy to proceed with it, they'll issue what we call an indicative offer or a terms sheet, where they say, yes, we're prepared to lend you the money, however, you have to tick all these boxes, as I said before, and the important one is the valuation. And you don't really have a proper finance approval until after that. And then, of course, there's documentation, loan documents, mortgage documents, those sorts of things. Quite a few things have to be signed. A lot of paperwork needs to be signed. But typically financiers won't issue that until after the valuation, because let's say the valuation was really bad for some reason, and, well, that's their out for lending you the money. They say, well, look, we can't lend you the money now, the valuation's terrible. And so they don't want to do a lot of work and a lot of preparation of documents before that, in case that happens. So they wait till the valuation's okay, and then they go ahead and they produce all this documentation, which then has to be signed, and then a settlement date for the finance is set, and then you settle. And so we're just way behind the eight ball. So we asked for an extension of 30 days. So it was due to settle 6th of January. We basically asked for it's a bit over 30. We asked for the 6th of February.
And that's not unreasonable to ask for that.
Under the circumstances.
Yeah.
And so, as typically happens, our lawyer...
One lawyer talks
to the other lawyer. So our lawyer requested an extension of time for, basically 30 days. Then we got a response back from the other lawyer saying, no, we're only going to give you 14. And we might charge you interest, from the date that it was due to settle. Well, we don't really care about the interest because it's a very profitable project. It's just a project cost. But the date's important. And they only gave us until the 20th. Now, if the valuation doesn't come back till the 10th, and then the financier has to produce all the documentation, which then has to be signed and a settlement date set and so forth, probably not going to happen. But it's not just a straightforward settlement where it's just us who are settling, is it? It's way more complex, and you're handling all of this at the moment. Yeah,
well, the settlement involves, there are 7 investors in the project, and not every investor is a single, because some of them are a couple. So of that 7, there's actually 8, 9, there's probably I'm probably dealing with about 12 or 13 actually, because somebody's they has a power of attorney for another person. I've still got to keep that person in the loop and work with the person with the power of attorney. So there's about 13 people involved, really, even though there's 7 investors. And they all have specific paperwork they need to complete for the financier. And then...
Because a couple of the investors are investing in their own name.
Yes.
So it's part of an entity. It's an entity that we've established. And these investors are part of that entity, and it's the entity that does the development.
Yeah, so some are in their own name and some are in...
Company names?
Yeah, company names.
Some are in trust?
Yeah, some are in trust. So if they need asset documents, we've got to have... they have to fill out a basic A&L. They need...
It's an asset and liability for each one.
Yeah, so there's a lot of specific paperwork. But even before that, to set it up, there was anyway, that's just the step before. But to get to here, a lot of the information we're able to have. But then you always get the odd person who might be out of the country.
Well, that's just happened.
And that's just happened. So then I'm chasing people that they don't have Wi-Fi. They're on an aeroplane, and then he lands yesterday afternoon in Qatar, and I'm like, why aren't you? I'm checking his WhatsApp. You haven't responded. It hasn't been delivered. I'm having like a little meltdown because I know I've got the financier wanting information. And then it's just, some people don't read the right thing on paperwork. And oh my goodness, it has just been, I felt like I've been herding cats.
You have been herding cats.
I've been herding the cats like you wouldn't believe. And then even though you tell them what the process is going, so the next step will be this. And then, so it's not like they it's not new to them. They already know the next 3 steps that are coming. That hopefully they got yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few steps to it. So
that's like a real extra complication is dealing with a number of people.
Yes.
You're doing that, but the financier is also like dealing with those people. So it's 7 or 10 or 12 or whatever it is, lots of paperwork to be produced. So it's pretty obvious that if they only gave us 14 days from the 6th till the 20th and the valuation's not out to the 10th, we just can't produce all that paperwork, get it all signed, get it all back and a date set in time to settle.
Because they've got to then talk to lawyers. There's there's stuff that happens with them before they come back to us. There's all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So we're looking at trying to circumvent that a bit. So the big issue is the extension. We need a longer extension. So what we're doing, what often happens, and I've seen it many times, is let's say in this case our lawyer asks their lawyer for an extension. Now what their lawyer should do is then ask the developer, hey, listen, this particular purchaser, say, they were surprised by how quickly the titles came out. They got Christmas in the middle. Their lawyer's away for a week or 2 weeks. Their financiers, are only working, certain days. They can't meet the settlement date. They've asked for 30 days. What do you want me to say? That's what they should say, and then the developer can make up their own mind. But as often happens, it happens too often, the lawyers just make their own mind up.
For those who can't see us, if you're not watching us on YouTube, I had a massive eye roll then. I'm like, oh, yeah. Eye roll.
What we think could have happened is that our lawyers asked their lawyer for 30 days and they just come back as a typical lawyer and say, 14.
Yeah.
And without, thinking it through that it can't happen. I just want a bit of an arm wrestle. So what we've done now, and we've had a pretty good relationship with the developer on the way through because they've kept us informed up until, probably about 2 or 3 months ago when it all came out of the blue. But we're on good terms with them. And so we've now gone back directly to the developer and said, hey, not sure if you're aware, but, the titles did jump up on us. We've got Christmas in the middle, same story, same, excuse if you like. We've asked for a 30-day extension because that's what our financier says they need to settle. But your lawyer only gave us 14. And so I'm not sure if they consulted with you or not, but we really do need the 30 days to make this happen. And, through reasons, not our blame. And so we're trying to see how we go with that because it could be that they didn't know, or maybe they'll have a change of mind and give us the 30 days because we need the 30 days, not the 14 days. And so we're trying that first. And because they can, their lawyer only takes instructions from them, so they can overrule it. Maybe the lawyer, jumped the gun. Maybe they didn't even ask. So that's what we're trying first.
So that's the first way we're dealing with the unexpected. So and we have got a plan B, which we'll get to. But there's a key here that is a theme that comes through most of our podcasts. You heard Bob say, we have a fairly good relationship. And that is the key. The key is that we have a fairly good relationship. The same, so we can go back to them because of the good relationship. Also, the relationship I have with the investors, the fact that I can text them and say, hey, you actually did this wrong. Could you quickly get that done? I can send a message on WhatsApp. The relationships built are what will make this happen. And even when we go to the B plan, if that has to happen, when we don't hear, or whatever the answer is, hopefully today, I think that's key, that people don't realise that it's all about the relationships. Never burn the bridge. No. Always make sure that the relationships are good because they will make sure that moving forward, everyone does everything to make it easier and make things happen.
Well, the very fact that you've got those relationships with the investors, if you carry that backwards, that's why they're in the project.
Oh, for sure. And
in the first place.
Even one of them in this, I'm just thinking, yeah, he is. Yep. So in this one, somebody decided that they pulled out, and I was just waiting to hear because I kind of held it for them, and they pulled out for reasons that were out of their control. And I just went back to somebody and said, are you keen to pick up the rest? And said, yeah, how much more? And we're talking hundreds of thousands, but that's the relationship. The relationships are that good that you can say, well, if you want that, you can have it. And that's kind of how I like to roll with them. Yeah.
Yeah, so here we are with these issues caused by quick titles and Christmas and now we're dealing with it.
And lack of time.
Lack of time. It's all about lack of time, not being able to get the extension that we need. So where does that leave us? Well, hopefully, the best scenario...
Hopefully not up the creek without a paddle, Bob.
The best scenario now is if the developer comes back and says, look, okay, I understand it. We'll give you that 30-day extension. And look, we don't even mind paying interest on that 30 days. It's not insignificant. It's about $14,000 I worked out. If they were to charge us, an interest rate, let's say 10% or whatever it is, on that amount of money for some extra time, yeah, it might cost 14, but in the big picture, that's nothing.
And you've got to think, even if the developer says, no, I do need it now, we never know what's going on in his world. It might, this isn't personal.
No.
It could be.
And there's lots of... What's a bit different here, I suppose, is that the seller has about 27 settlements to deal with.
Right.
Because it's a stage, it's a subdivision, an industrial subdivision, as I mentioned earlier. So I imagine there's lots of developers that have been caught short.
Oh, okay.
With time.
Yeah.
And they're probably all having a go. And that's why we don't mind paying the interest if we have to. That's a good commercial solution.
So, Bob, that's solution one. What if they say no to that? We have a B plan.
Well, we have to have a B plan. So the B plan is...
if we don't have the B plan, what do we lose? The deposit?
Well, yeah, if you don't... Well, a bit more than that. I mean, I don't see this happening at all, but technically at least, if you can't settle a sale that you have under contract, most people think, I could lose my deposit. And yeah, that's true, but it's more than that. The seller can actually sue you for what they call specific performance. And so it's not all over when you lose your deposit. You can actually get sued. It's a bit of a process. And
what is specific performance? What does it entail? It means you didn't perform specifically.
I'll give you a quick example.
Yep.
I knew someone once who bought an apartment off plan. By the time the building was finished, they couldn't settle. Things happened in their life where they no longer had the money to settle.
Life got lifey.
So they lost their deposit. But then the developer chased them for specific performance. And the market had dropped quite a bit, so the developer knew that he could no longer sell it on the current market for what they had contracted it for. And so when he did sell it, let's say he sold it for $100,000 less than what they had it under contract. So then the developer could sue them for the other $100,000. And as it was, they negotiated, and I think they agreed on 30. So they lost their deposit and had to pay another $30,000 on top for specific performance. So it's not a place you want to be. There's certain things that can get you out of it, and one of it's dying. But I don't recommend that. Getting out of a contract by dying.
It's a bit final, Bob. Yeah.
Anyway, back to this situation here.
Can I just ask a question about specific performance? Does that only relate to property development, or does it relate...
No, any settlement of any purchase, any contract. If you don't complete your contract, that it's an unconditional contract. Let's say it's reached a point no longer having any conditions, and then settlement date comes, you can't do it. You just can't settle for whatever reason. Yeah, it's not just lose your deposit. So back to us, we've got to look at the worst case scenario. So can we settle? In other words, can we settle without the financier? That's really what it comes down to. And so,
which means that the money that we need, the rest of the money, that's what we'd have to do. We'd have to settle without the money that the financier is going to give us, which means we have to find someone's got to magic the money up from the magic money tree.
So we obviously have a certain amount of money as equity in the project. So you have to have a certain amount of your own money, and so that money isn't quite enough to settle the land. We're a bit short.
Yep.
And so what we're going to have to do is pass the hat around, I guess, between ourselves and the investors, and see if we can come up with the missing bit. So the missing bit is the difference between the money we have and the money we need to settle. So it's not just the purchase price, it's an industrial one. We've got GST on the top, we've got stamp duty and legals and so forth. So we're still a bit short. So what we'll do, if we don't get the right answer from the developer and get the extension that we need, we'll have to pass a hat around and make sure we've got enough money to top up what we already have so that we can just settle for cash. We won't even need a financier.
So that would mean us and the investors all putting in money to come up with that top up, which is about 600,000.
Oh, it's about 550. Yeah.
So about 550,000. So between everybody, we're pretty sure that could happen anyway. That can happen.
It'll happen.
And then those that do that will get an interest rate return on their money.
Yeah, and look, it might only be for 14 to 30 days because the financier will still settle. It's just that they can't settle on the date that the seller insists on.
Yeah.
So it's like pass the hat around, put some money in the hat, top up the capital we already have, settle on the site, and then let's say 2 or 3 weeks later, the financier settles, and then we get that top up back. But you have to have it in the first place to settle.
And there we go again. That really also comes back to relationships, doesn't it? The relationships are good enough and strong enough that we can make that happen.
Yeah. So that's like plan B or C.
For the people who are putting the money in is ownership because they already own that land.
Yeah.
So
it's not second mortgage or anything. I don't need that. We just need a temporary top up, pay an interest rate, which is fair, even though it's only be for 3 weeks, and away we go. But we have to put that in place just in case we don't get there.
So the B plan, we'll know today whether we need to get ready to get
Top
that
up.
done. And again, then we've got to think we're going into Christmas, banks are shut, people moving. It's just moving.
Oh, yeah. But, we got the time to do it.
Yeah, we will.
For sure.
So that's
And we got we have the need to do it. And we'll get there.
Yeah, we will get there.
It's not a lot of money to make it happen.
No, not for the amount of people.
And that's the solution. It's not just, we've got a major problem. Well, okay, you got a problem. What are you going to do to solve it?
And that's a key takeaway as well. Reflection, relationships, and there are always solutions. It's not very often there's not a solution for something.
We've got a couple of solutions, so we go to the easiest one first.
Yeah.
I mean, the perfect scenario would be if the developer gives us the extension of not 14 days but 30 and doesn't charge us interest. Second best, if he gives us the 30 days and pays some interest, charges us some interest, that's okay, we'll take that. Third one, well, let's get the money. Let's top up.
Yeah. So we've got plenty of ways around it to deal with the unexpected. So how that could apply to somebody, well, you could use any of those.
Yeah, and how many times do we see somebody's purchasing a property and it goes over Christmas? And you nearly always need an extension. In some places with residential real estate, they can't actually deny you an extension over the Christmas period. But this is a commercial transaction that the same rules don't apply. So, but, we'll get there. Once, in fact, you know this for a fact, we bought quite a large development site once, and we bought it in 2 parts. We bought one part initially, and then about 12 months later we bought the second part. The second settlement, and I've never heard of this happening ever, it happened on Boxing Day, 26th of December. That was a date that had to be met, and we met it. Now, normally, lawyers disappear. You can't find them.
And you get both Christmas. Lawyers choosing to work on Boxing Day.
So we had.
How did you do that?
We had relationships. We had our lawyer prepared to work and settle the deal on Boxing Day, and the other lawyer for the seller, they must have took their lawyer into it or gave him a bonus or did something. They were there as well because you need the 2 lawyers to do the settlement, and it happened. Never before have I ever seen or heard of a settlement on Boxing Day.
So you never, and that's just another example of you never know what's possible, do you really? So Bob, I think we can wrap this one up. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2025, second episode in. And we hope you've had a great Christmas. We're saying that because it's not Christmas yet, so we're still working into that mode. But hopefully you've picked up a great story there of something we're dealing with right now. So we're pretty active on the development front. And the takeaways, relationships, solutions, what was the other one? There were 3 in there. Well, the other one, I said it before. There's always a solution. You've got to have great relationships. And I don't remember. Anyway, I just said it a minute ago.
It's there somewhere.
Yeah, it's in there. So I just said it, just summarised it not long ago. Anyway, so we hope to catch you again soon. And if you're interested in learning about property development through us, then reach out via the website, or there's probably a link below at the bottom of this podcast. Other than that, we've got heaps going on. Our first workshops in May 2, 3 and 4. We would love to see you there in the Gold Coast. If you're interested in finding out more about that and getting an early bird special, reach out.
Or maybe even be an investor in one of the projects.
Yeah, and there's always that too. All right, well, I think that's it from us, Bob. Thanks so much for sharing, and we'll catch you all next week.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.